Hi, are you always replaying conversations in your head? This is a common thing. And what we're going to talk about today is how to stop that spiral for good. And so I want you to. I want you to stop this spiral, and I want you really to help your brain stop this for you. And so I want what I'm going to talk about today is why this is happening, and what to do to get it back on track and actually develop this process so that it's more functional for you and it's not causing um, the shame spiraling, the loss of time and energy. These things, this can be really disheartening, discouraging, and it can really hold us back in our dreams, our goals, and our relationships, and just our self-development. And who we are, who we know we are, those kinds of things. And so this one thing is a brain challenge that can cause a lot of different problems. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. I want you to understand this from your brain's perspective, because that will be really easy for you to solve it, and you will want to, because I also want to increase your motivation for diving in and doing this work. And it's wonderful. So, I'm Rachel McLeod. I'm a mental health therapist, and I specialize in helping people do the brain work for resolving symptoms of anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress. And the brain has a really beautiful process for this. And it's the brain's own natural process, and that process gets stopped and blocked. And so when it's blocked, we are not getting our symptoms resolved. We're not, our brain isn't able to do that. And it's also not able to help us grow, develop, mature, create mastery. There's a lot of things that the brain can't do here. Resolving symptoms is just one of them. So when we get this process unblocked and moving well, all of a sudden we get those symptoms resolved. Replaying conversations in your head is one of those symptoms of anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress. And we want that resolved. We want the brain to resolve that for you. Make it go away. That's its job. And so when this is happening, we're finding a place where your brain can't do its job. This is common. If you can help your brain with this one, there's so many things you can help your brain with, and this is at the forefront of the work that I do. And when we have disorders, we have a more complex situation, and we'll find this replaying conversations in your head as one of the issues, and we want to resolve that because it simplifies the whole disorder. And then we pick the next thing and we go in there and resolve that one too. And then pretty soon you're just seeing yourself soar and thrive and excel, without the baggage and without the spirals and the loops and the loss of time and energy and self-confidence. So this is a really big deal, even though it's a very can be a very small part of a disorder, but it's a root issue. It's the same brain process is blocked, and so we actually do the same thing, help the brain get this process unblocked when it's trying to work on other issues as well. So let's dive into this. I want you to understand that this replaying conversations in your head is actually a very important brain function. And it's not supposed to be operating like this, where it's looping and it's taking forever and it's kicking up pain and it's just spiraling and it's not going anywhere. And then you want to dread conversations and you don't want to talk to that person or this person or the next person is growing in its impact in your life. And uh, but that doesn't change the fact that this is an important brain function. Your brain actually needs to replay conversations well and at a very high level. And what we want to see is we want to see your brain being able to replay conversations quickly. We want it to be accurate. We want it to be smooth. Sometimes it can feel really clunky and junky, and that's because it is. And so we want to clean that up. Also, another thing that we want to do is we want to see this function run in the background. A lot of our mental health brain functions need to be running in the background, and they'll also be running at night when we're sleeping. This is the back scenes work. When things aren't running behind the scenes, the brain is going to bring it up to your awareness. So the fact that you're watching yourself replay your conversations already lets us know that your brain is struggling with it and it wants your help. It's recruiting other parts of the brain to resolve this issue. It's not just running in the background. Well, we're good. Nothing to see here, folks. No, it's like, no, we're not doing this well. Come have a look at this with me. And so it starts filling your awareness. You start noticing it. And that doesn't always increase the ability to resolve it. Well, it actually can really start that loop and a pattern, because the brain is still like, help me. And you're like, I am going to play it out. I'm just going to replay the conversation instead of helping the brain with the process. And what we need to do with the process is open that brain process for processing and resolving these issues. And this sounds really overly simplified, right? I really struggle with this because I'm like, this is so magical and awesome. And it's so incredibly simple that I make these videos and people are like, you didn't say what to do. I said what to do. Open that brain process, get it running optimally, because it's like, maybe I'm going to use a different analogy today. It's like you have this replaying the conversation and it's trying to get through this little processor to the other side where all this executive functioning is going to happen and all this emotional intelligence is going to happen. And you're going to watch your brain use this conversation for growth and mastery and development and becoming great at conversations and social interactions. That's what the brain's designed to do. It loves all these, ooh, we didn't say that right. It loves all these little bits of, I wonder what they think of me now. The brains love that. But can you get it to the top of the brain into the executive functioning where they can work this out, have a party about it, create growth and rewiring, and then load back in improved, higher functioning programming for you and your body? Right? And so, but what happens is these conversations are typically painful. There's post-traumatic stress in there. I'm going to talk about what's in these conversations, why, from your brain's perspective, they're hard to process. But they're trying to get through this little, the tube, and they're too big, they're too clunky. There's this little guardian right here. I'm being... There's a little guardian right here, okay? And this little guardian is your survival system. It's the limbic system. And if there's pain moving through, it's going to close this off and it's not going to let that process run. And so we don't want to fight against that. We actually want to spend our time influencing your survival system to let that process happen. The other challenge is brains, when some things are just too big for brains to process. The more you practice healthy processing of situations and events and energies and emotions, the better your brain gets at that, the bigger this hole gets, and the brain is able to process more and more complex things. Now, when you're an adult and you have you've processed a lot of things, you learned a lot of things, you can do some complex things. You don't really think about that because you're used to your brain doing some really awesome things. But when we've got this replaying conversations in your head situation, it's like in that area, for whatever reason, the brain has not been successful enough to create the ability to process something complex with these conversations. That's normal. And so we can be really fantastic in all these areas, but have this one area of underdevelopment, and our brain, it's just a showstopper for our brain. Our brain's like, I don't know, help me. And we're going to watch that looping, and the whole process is going to malfunction. We know it's also malfunctioning when it's creating pain. Brains are designed to use things for our highest good and for things to be really beneficial to us. And when we've got a function happening that's actually destroying our confidence, wasting our time, wasting our energies, that's not supposed to be happening like that. That's also a sign that we need to jump in here and help. Okay. Brains need to review things. It's it's high levels of emotional intelligence, and it's high levels of executive functioning. Athletes do this. We were replaying videos, tapes of our last plays, our last games, our last matches. We're doing this, our last swings, if we're golfers. I'm trying to be inclusive here. So and when we get to review something, we learn from it, we grow, we'll go into the next game, match, situation, and we will perform at a higher level. Brains love this because your brain's job is creating mastery. It knows that, and it is at work doing this, but it has to be able to go through its process for creating that mastery. So we don't want this thing to stop. We want it to get better. And then we want it to go behind the scenes. We gave you the help you needed. Now you're doing it well. And actually your brain will get you out of here. You don't have to make that transition, because your brain also's job is to save you energy. And so once it's got a good hang of it, it's like, okay, back off. Let me see what I can do here. And it takes it over. And you can kind of stand back and be like, oh, well, let me just give you a little more help while you're working on that. And then, but pretty soon you and your brain realize that you've got this going well, and your brain, it won't even bring this to your mind. And you won't even think about it anymore. And then one day you'll be like, gosh, I used to replay these conversations all the time and I don't anymore. And that's how it happens. And that is when you know your brain has really created a really beautiful subconscious program for replaying conversations and really sucking the juice out of them and getting the learning and the value and the information from them, and creating growth and health and wellness. That's its design. That's what it needs to be doing. But in these spaces, brains have some questions, and those questions are very revealing, and those questions needs answers. And so when you find something in your brain that is so underdeveloped, like this, it can be really hard to slow down and have patience with your brain. Aren't we past that already? I can't believe we're still thinking about this. I should be over this already. I shouldn't be wondering this, or gosh, the same question all the time. I get that. And if we can get in here and just give the brain that specific support to ask the questions while we're also supporting that mind-body processing loop, so that this guardian is out of the way and we're also breaking it down small enough to get through the processing channels, we're going to watch our brain finally resolve this issue. And I just said a whole lot of words, but in the amount of time I just said all those words, we can help your brain resolve this and give it its first experience of processing this issue and overcoming this challenge. It doesn't take a long time because these are electrical processes your brain is working on. And so when that process is open and the problem is small enough, we're going to watch this thing resolve and get processed in minutes, not days and weeks and months. And every one time this thing makes it through the healing process up to the executive functioning, past the survival system, the limbic system, and it makes its way up there, it's different. It's changed. They understand this thing better than they've ever understood it. That looping is the sign it can't get through. Once it starts getting through, we're going to notice epiphanies, insights, new ways of being starting to happen all the time. And we need to make sure this whole thing gets processed, because people can be so excited about the epiphanies they're having and the growth that they're having that they don't really want to finish this project. But your brain does want to finish this, because we want to restore this entire process. We want to restore, not just get you some epiphanies, we want to restore this function, because you need to be great at reviewing your conversations and taking your nuggets from them. It's a feedback. This experience happened. You get to get your feedback about how you did, how your brain did, what your programming looks like, who they are, what they know, what all these things in here, and your brain takes it and stores it in your data bank for future awesomeness. And so it's, even if there's problems in there, it's still part of your brain's mastery creation process. Brains don't make health and wellness just out of the good stuff, but also the not good stuff. Don't be afraid of this stuff in here, because it's also going to be turned into your highest good, your highest evolution, your expansion, your growth, even if it's painful and negative. That's just what brains do. Brains don't have problems with this, the pain neurons do, right? And so that's why we are actually sending tons of the interventions I teach they're designed to send safety signaling through the body up to the survival system part of the brain, sending safety signals, hey, it's safe, at the same time that pain is moving. And so once the survival system knows that it's safe enough to allow processing, it does. And so we're sending those at the same time, and all of a sudden that brain process gets up and running. I explained this in many videos, and I teach these interventions in my free program, Interventions for Inner World Transformation, and I teach 3 of my favorite interventions for this that work with about 96% of people. So I'm highly confident that one of them is going to work for you, and there are no known side effects to these interventions. There are other interventions that do. I don't share those for free because I don't want people hurting themselves with things. But so if you can imagine a conversation, and while you're replaying it, because we're not stopping that conversation, we are actually going to let it replay. But when it's replaying, you're going to use one of these interventions at the same time that you're going to pull up. Your brain is thinking about this painful thing, and you're stepping in to provide safety signaling, which is designed to support your survival system. And now all of a sudden, all this stuff is moving to the top. All of a sudden, processing is happening at a very high speed, optimally, because your mind body system got what it needed to process things. Brains are designed to process. We have evolved to process when there's enough safety. And if we're lacking some safety, we can send some in with these interventions. And that's what we're doing behind the scenes to repair this. That's simple. But I'm going to keep talking because I'm going to give you some information again. Okay. So there's some questions in there. Why did we say that? What does this mean about us? The questions in here are so many of them. There's so many, but if you get in here and listen, you're going to hear your questions, and you take those questions and you use your intervention with them. You make sure you escort these questions of yours through the healing process. You support your brain to do its work, even though you feel like you're light years ahead of this. Okay. In this looping conversation, sometimes in here, there's unprocessed experiences where you learn that conversations are dangerous. And so this is post-traumatic stress showing up in real time to impair one of your functions. And in this case, we don't resolve this issue in the replaying conversations in your head. We actually go back to that unprocessed memory, and we get it processed. And then your brain learns, oh, not to generalize what's dangerous in conversations, but to really learn about it very specifically and build solutions for it. And so it's just not afraid any longer of all conversations. And it's also not terrified if that one thing happens, because it's already built solutions on it. And so as you're living in real time in that moment, you're going to see yourself not freeze up, or you're going to see yourself function better in real time in conversations if trauma is involved. But what you're also going to see is this replaying conversations problem resolve, right? And so if it resolves with one event, one conversation, that's the only root issue in there. That's rooted in an experience, a painful experience that's unresolved. We're going to check back into this replaying conversations. If it's still happening, there's likely another root or two. We're going to go find those and do the same thing. And I love doing this because when you go to a root issue and you resolve it, many issues resolve. We are targeting and tracking the always replaying conversations in your head. And so we've tracked it back to this root issue, and we're resolving this root, and we're getting growth and progress here. But this root was attached to many things, and this is how we will end many symptoms. And so we're only looking for one right here, but we're doing a lot of work when we work through events. So also, these conversations that are replaying are often challenges with your self-concept, who you are, what you do. There are also lots of insecurities about yourself. So these conversations are really helpful for getting that stuff processed, because what the result of that will be is your self-concept will get more healthy, more accurate, more functional, and you will actually start building self-trust, your self-concept is changing. And so that's one of the reasons why this replaying conversations is really great to go after, to target and resolve, because you get these other growths here, and the end result is you make more peace with yourself, because you're actually processing your insecurities, you're processing your self-doubt, you're processing the ways you failed yourself in the past, you're processing beliefs you have about yourself. That shifts everything. And what it's going to turn into once it gets processed is more self-love, more self-trust, and making peace with yourself, honoring yourself. And so that's really huge, especially if you've got a lot of self-hatred running around. If you've got self-hatred and always replaying conversations in your head, go after that and watch what happens to your self-hatred. You'll watch that shift and turn into self-love. I'm doing this all the time. I'm telling you this is how it works. But I do want you to grab these interventions and try them for yourself. I want you to see this for yourself because it's just that awesome. One of my clients said this yesterday. It was so powerful. I'm like, I actually have it recorded. I might have to go back and grab this statement from her. But she said, it's really hard to understand the shifts, but it's really easy to see them happen. Right? And that's what I know this to be true. So I can talk about this till the cows come home, but you grab one of these interventions, you get your brain to do this, and you watch your self-esteem rise. You watch your capacity for higher function and conversations actually happen before your eyes. It's mind-blowing. And then you know why I like this work so much. It's hard to explain, but the results are tangible. You feel them, you see them. And going after one problem, like replaying conversations in your head, which can take hours of your time. I used to spend hours here. You get all that back. You see that transform your whole life. There's so many areas this is impacting, and it's just showing up as this one issue, but we can resolve so many here. Yeah. One of the other problems in this piece with always replaying conversations in your head is people typically have a disturbance in their self-awareness. They're overly aware, they're under aware. They're becoming aware that they're under aware, that they're not aware, they've been in denial. I hope you're following me, but there's a disturbance in the self-awareness, and we need to get that ironed out. And a lot of times this will show up in this replaying conversations in your head problem. It's one of the root issues is a disturbance in the self-awareness. So this is also an opportunity, like when somebody doesn't have very good social skills and they're starting to process these things, their brain is actually like, hey, we need this process so we can grow our social skills. Okay, let's go. Please help me with this. And we don't know. We think our brain is attacking us and making us have these symptoms, but it's really asking us for help. That's the brain's way of doing it. But we get this process and our social skills increase, and brains know this. That's why I'm doing whatever the brain wants to do. Your brain, I'm working with you. Your brain comes here. I'm doing what your brain wants to do because it is trying to resolve so many issues with what it's presenting, and it's always right. I haven't found a brain to be wrong yet. So I like to go where the brain is going. Yeah. Okay. Also, this thing, we replay conversations in our head. One of the challenges in there is that our ability and a capacity to process an emotion is underdeveloped or not yet developed. For instance, shame. If we can't run that energy through our system well, it gets rerouted by the survival system, kicked back into the body, held in the stomach, held in the shoulders, wherever it gets held in the body, because the body keeps the score. Then we haven't practiced that a successful repetition of processing shame. And so the brain doesn't know how to do it yet. And so we actually need to get in there and teach the mind-body system, the brain, to process shame. And once we can do it once, then we're going to do it twice. Then we're going to do it 3 times. We can find these conversations will point us right to that emotion that's not processing. And so we can, while we're resolving this one, we're going to find these things, and then we're going to practice shame processing in them until your brain is good at processing shame or whatever emotion is not processing well. Sometimes it's embarrassment, sometimes it's vulnerability, sometimes it's fear, sometimes it's worry. Doesn't matter, whatever one, we're practicing processing it, and pretty soon the brain becomes really good at that, which means it happens fast. Brains can process shame quickly, smoothly, and it starts to process in the background. Okay, so that's really what's going on with replaying conversations. And if you have this issue, I want you to know that you are standing on a gold mine of transformation. That one issue is just, when you get underneath and help it out, you're going to watch yourself grow and expand and become higher functioning and more emotionally intelligent in so many areas. It is worth diving in here and doing this work and supporting your brain to really process, heal, and and resolve this issue. And so you get, not only do you get to stop this spiral, but you get so many other benefits as well. And so I want you to see this as a really wonderful opportunity. I'm sorry you have this. I'm sorry you're suffering, and let's help your brain with it so you get all this growth. So I invite you to enroll in my free program, Interventions for Inner World Transformation. Grab those interventions, try them. If you don't like them, throw them out. But likely you're going to find one that really helps your brain shift from survival mode to processing mode. And you're going to watch your brain do new things with these same old triggers. And you can do that as much as you want to. Once you have a fitting intervention, an intervention that's effective for you and your brain. We try a bunch because I don't know which one your brain will like or which one you will like. Once you have that online, I also have a process for resolving these situations like this, these symptoms, and in a very strategic and really advanced way. And so I encourage you to journey with me. If you have that intervention and you won't work and you're like, what else can I do with my brain? Let me show you in my program, Inner World Transformation. And that's available on my website. And I also work with people one-on-one in small groups. And I do offer consultations. So if you want me to have a look at what's going on in your inner world, I'm happy to do that. You can find the information out on my website, rachelmcleod.com, and I will see you around. Take care. Bye.